Everyone, this is the fourth and probably the last refrigerated build that I do. I've got a lot of projects going on. The only reason I'm making this video is someone requested it. So let's go ahead and take a look. I will be using the same technique on this semi over here. I'm going to be installing an AC with the temperature control, an exterior temperature control, but it won't be refrigerated. This is a super rush build. Behind this 2-inch, in between the ribs, there's 3/4 inch insulation. I think this is 2.5 inch insulation, and then we've got 4 inches of insulation. Let me get inside and close this door. Please excuse the mess. We've just got one AC working right now. There's hardly any produce in here to try to protect. Very little insulation back here, and a real problem here. There's little insulation, plus you've got the door that swings up and inside, so just a real problem to try to insulate this. Now, we don't need the entire truck insulated. There are some things like tomatoes that will never be refrigerated. If you refrigerate them, you know, they're gonna lose their texture. So we've got this in here for tomatoes, onions, things like that. Now, the temperature does get low in here, between 75 at the most and 65. It can get lower, you know, if it was to freeze, but it's 95 degrees outside, so we're not worried about that right now. Again, excuse the mess. So we're right now running one AC. As you can tell, there's no produce in here, just a couple of boxes of peppers and some lemons. So with one AC, we can maintain 49 degrees with it being 95 outside in this very large room. Now, we do have 8 inches of insulation up top, and there's no insulation underneath. I do have 3 of the cross members insulated in the back. I'm sorry, underneath. There's like 3 of these going this way, insulated. But you have these panels, and they're reinforced with fiberglass. So to get up underneath there and cut and try to push things past fuel lines and things like that is really an issue. And again, this was a rush job. Probably did the entire thing in 3 days. If you want to prevent some of the insulation from getting on you, you can try painting it. I use this undercoating to keep the fiberglass fibers in check. The skin wasn't even placed in, just the insulation. So there's about 7 inches of insulation, 8 inches of insulation. This first 3 rows, there's about, I want to say 5 foot, because I know those aren't 24 inches. And then we've got nothing. The floors are oak, and you know, we didn't use the diesel fuel and motor oil because we've got, you know, a lot of food in and out. We don't need the smell, and maybe, you know, it off gas and give the food a bad flavor. This is boiled linseed oil, and I think it's mineral spirits, just cut half and half. 2 applications. Very waterproof. I'll probably end up putting another coat on in 6 months to a year, just for maintenance. And I'm gonna flip this other AC on right here. So we got both of them running. Just opening that door and coming inside, we jumped up to 51. Again, not a big deal. Now, notice that the one on the left is set for 40, and the one on the right is set for 45. I really only want it 45 degrees in here. There's a lot of vegetables like eggplant and onions and things. You don't want them getting too cold. They can go bad on you as soon as you take them out. But so you want your ACs up as high as possible. You know, we didn't want to get into the framework or make them inaccessible or too close to the ceiling. But we want them as high as possible. You do not want any air filters on them. Just clean your coils every 6 months, and that's all you're going to need. One AC is really all I need. I've got two. The reason for two: one, you get a lot of hot things, watermelons, cantaloupe, corn, that is 80 degrees, 90 degrees, and you want to get that temperature down as quickly as possible. So having the second AC, see, we jumped up from coming inside. But that curtain is essential, and the second AC is just to get it down in temperature quickly. Or if you're going to be in and out a lot, that will really help to bring things down. You'll see that in a minute. This will get to be 47 degrees, but in the meantime we still rose a little bit just from opening that door. One thing to note about this glue: you don't want to install something like this with the glue that they recommend and having AC. The reason being, the glue will not set up if it's cold. Now that's really strange, because you know, if you wanted to do this in a construction trailer and you wanted to do it in the wintertime or somewhat wintertime up north, you're going to want it to set up. So tell me what you think about that in the comments. One thing about the placement of the thermostat probes: you want them close enough to the coils that if you have any type of a freeze up problem, they can get the ice around them and turn the compressor off instead of just running and having a block of ice. Now, the biggest reason that these would ever freeze up is going to be air infiltration. So you want a sealed unit and no filters. Clean this every 6 months. If you have those three things, okay, this one just kicked on. If you have those three things, then this this will take care of itself. So I set these, I have them close to the fins, and if there was to be any ice, it would reset until you get rid of most of that humidity and the condenser can deal with it all. Now, again, like I said, this was all thrown together, and I mean thrown together, 3 days to do the entire build, install the ACs and wire everything, and hook up the compressors to these units. So to fix something like this, you would just take some spray foam, the insulated foam, and you would spray it inside, use a stick or something to hold it in place, and once this set up, it's not going to go anywhere. It's glued in there. So we've got now these two things on. A little bit about these units: we switched over from, I want to call them the Chinese thermostats, to this style. Two things: number one, they're very robust. They're not, you know, they're sealed pretty much, so you don't have to worry about getting shocked or anything like that. And easy to get. You know, if you have one break, you can buy it off Amazon and get it to your house in a hurry. Having two units like this, if one unit was to break, cheap. You pull it out, install another one, and including wiring it up should only take you 20 minutes to do the whole thing, you know, to replace this. And the AC is very accessible. You go to almost any store, buy it, bring it home, take it apart. There goes the warranty. Yeah, take it apart, do what you need to do, and get it back up and running. But in the meantime, you'll have one still running, still maintaining the 50 degrees. Now, if you want to get it colder, obviously you're going to use bigger ACs. These are just 5,000 BTU, should be around 400 watts. And this can handle the compressor. You're not running, with this, you're not running fan and compressor. You're just controlling the compressor with these units. Now, what they would have you do, see, we've already dropped temperature. What they would have you do is to control the whole AC. You can't do that. You have to have air circulating all the time pulling in the hot air and pushing out the cold air. That way you have consistent temperature throughout the whole storage unit. Now this storage unit is quite excessive. I don't expect most people to have something like this. But having enough insulation makes a difference whether you need big ACs or just a couple of small ones such as this. Now I did use a Domitech. My very first unit that I used was Domitech. It pulled so much current through the compressor. The little Chinese thermostat controller had a real trouble not burning out with those thin wires. They would just overheat and burn out. Now I resoldered them a few times, but that's a lot of current running through that solder. So more insulation and smaller units so they're not kicking on and off all the time. This here is just in place. These bars weren't really quite long enough to secure correctly. These are to hold the tables in place while driving around, and you can see here this was foamed and held up in place. This will never come down, but the real reason for this here is for these bars. This is undercoating. You could probably paint it with some type of a thick paint. You just don't want the insulation getting into your skin, you know. You could do it long sleeve shirts, wash a lot. What else? The light stays on all the time, so you open the door, you come inside, it's already lit. It's only 13 watts, LEDs. You don't even feel any heat. You could put your hand here all day long and not even get warm. Already down to 49 degrees. So again, on the things, you want them close enough to intercept any ice buildup. We're not going to have that because it's been running for a while. The humidity is very low in here. The battery. Okay, so this is a few Nissan Leaf batteries inside this box, and just a cheap 24 volt inverter. This will power one AC for about 4 hours, and what I've done to make that runtime a little bit longer is so I've got an onboard charger, and I've got a tiny generator, super quiet, super cheap, and very efficient. Now something like this will never run, my god, it's getting cold in here, will never run one of these ACs. The startup pressure needed to turn the compressor over is enormous. 1500 watt surge. I've got 1100 watt champion, and it's hit or miss whether it turns. You know, once you get it on, it can, you know, it'll stay on. It's not going to kick on and off all the time. But you really need something like an 1800 watt continuous to get one of these running. So 1100 watt running is what the champion says, and 1500 watt surge is hit or miss on one AC to start up. That's how much current they can draw. But with this, all I have to do is maintain the battery, so that gives it a lot longer runtime. I believe I discussed the floors, linseed oil. This is essential if you're in and out a lot. Keeps things from keeps all your cold air in, unless you got a tiny door, but this I run a lot of times with this door open, and just having the curtain here, because you know, loading vegetables up, the door's wide open, the AC's on. See here, we got a mistake. This bag is keeping this curtain from operating properly, yet we still have, you know, we still have a cool down with these two ACs running. I will be turning one of these off again. Like I said, there's hardly any produce in here. So that's it as far as the build. I want to have a shout out for York Troger. He helped as much as he could, but he's a very busy person too. Big shout out. He's got a channel, Grandma's German Chicken. Hilarious. Grandma's German Chicken. Yeah, Grandma's German Kitchen. If you're interested in making yourself hungry, you should definitely go check out his channel. A lot of healthy food and some really surprising delicious desserts. So go check that out. Tell him I sent you. And next thing, I got some clips that I did while I was putting all this together, how to set up the compressor, and because you definitely don't want to turn off the entire unit. You need that air circulating around and around, pulling those hot spots in and pushing the cold air back to them. So again, just controlling the compressors. So I'm going to turn 47 degrees. I'm going to turn one of these off. Definitely cold in here, 95 degrees outside here in Florida, and 1000% humidity outside. I think, I don't know if this is a lump or if maybe I'm growing gills on my neck from the humidity. Anyway, check out the AC build. It's pretty specific. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'll try to answer them as fast as possible. Apologize for the rush. We've got too many things going on. That semi over there has got a lot of repairs being made. Might have a separate channel for that one. Or you can throw in the comments that you want to see that one, and I might combine that mechanic build. Going to be doing the in-frame on that, and did a whole lot of other things on there. The poor thing was neglected, and I don't like to see any trucks suffer. But second video, here it is. So we're going to be adding a Inkbird refrigerator control system to this AC. I'm going to be replacing this, I want to call it Chinese style temperature controller. This one's a little bit easier to install. It says that it's plug and play. I wouldn't rely on that. It does have the plug and play options, cooling and heating, and you just plug it in, and here's your thermostat. But if you plug the whole AC into this cooling, you're not going to have fan forced air, and it's going to start and stop. Better just to stop and start the compressor and go that route. That way you keep the air circulated. You're not going to have any hot spots, and it'll work a lot better that way. Your startup will be a whole lot less than just starting the fan. All right, so let's check it out. So first we're just going to remove these screws all the way around to access the compressor area. We're going to remove these two screws right here and here. That way we can run our new wire that plugs and plays directly in without having any holes in our AC. So this is a good time as any just to say, if you do this, you do it at your own risk. This device is saying that the refrigerant is flammable. Also, there's a capacitor in here, so you don't want to accidentally dish that charge out on yourself. I, of course, have unplugged this and will be working on it. So that being said, let's get into it. Alright, so we have run and resecured our line to power the compressor up. I've spliced back. I did have these under wire nuts for the old style. I used a butt splice. I haven't taped it out yet. That way it could be seen what I've got going on here. And right here we're only using the power. Okay, this goes to the compressor. And what I did for the white and the green, I folded them back, but at various lengths. Because if your white and green touch the copper part of it, it'll trip your GFI. So I folded them back in various lengths, taped it up, and we're only using this hot to power up the compressor. If you got a big compressor, you might be aware of what size wire you use to power this up. This one in particular only has about 430 watts. So it's about 3 amps, 4 amps. Right here it says 4 amps. For the compressor, it'll probably only be about 3 amps. So just about any gauge wire that you find will be enough to supply for this AC. So let's plug this in and show you how this works. We're going to leave this open for now, just so that you can see the workings. Alright, so right now I have the AC off. You wouldn't normally do that because the compressor would freeze up the front fence, but we've got it off so we don't have too much noise. Let me walk you through some of the things I've done. You see it's flashing cooling. One thing that they don't tell you is that you have to set the temperature, either hot or cold, and that will dictate whether the cooling comes on or the heating comes on. So I've got this set for 40 degrees. I'm going to walk you through some of the settings. It's going to kick on in 3 minutes. All right, TS is temperature select. I've got it set for 40 degrees. HD is the heat delay. It's set for 3 degrees Fahrenheit. The cold delay is 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Now you can alter these settings. The alarm high, 248 degrees. The alarm low is -40. And the PT, this is a compressor delay. It wouldn't make sense to just delay the compressor because this thing can't just delay the compressor. It would only delay the entire unit. And I've got it set for 3. So that gives us 3 minutes. So what's going to happen is this is going to kick on after 3 minutes, and it will kick on just the compressor because the wire that we ran only goes to the compressor. I'm going to pull this out, show you where we got that. There's a little relay in here. I stole it from there. This is actually just the power. Power goes in and feeds the whole system. On this side, it goes out to the compressor. So we've stolen that, and we've wired that in with butt splice and an actual wire. Oh, before I get to tell you, no, I did not steal my daughter's computer wire to make this video. That was just for fun and games. But anyhow, this is getting ready to turn on. Let me walk you around to the thermostat. The wire itself has a really nice silicone feel. I've just put it in here. I like my thermostat to touch the fins because we're getting it so cold. If this happens to ice up, you want it to notice that ice and then go ahead and kick off, because you know, if this thing fills up with ice, there's not going to be any air circulating. And you hear that? So the little light went total green. That means it's running that compressor. We're going to kick the whole thing off at this time. But notice we've got one for the AC and one for the device. And the device itself actually has heating and cooling outlet. So this would be nice, you know, if you had a infrared heater and you wanted to set it for 75 degrees or 68 degrees or 55 degrees, you could do that. And these digital thermometers, they're a whole lot more sensitive than those most of the thermostat ones that have the magnetic striker. Some of the cheap heaters, I'm sure if you've ever used them, you wake up in the middle of the night and it's 100 degrees in your house, you feel like you could drink a whole bathtub worth of water because the heater never kicked off. With something like this, it would eliminate that problem. But anyway, we're going to put this all back together. This is how you build it. The name of it's Inkbird. I think it was only like $38. I'm going to post a link right here. That way you guys can see the actual price. Not a bad item. I do like that you can change it from Celsius to Fahrenheit, and that's what I've did. Um, this is my third refrigeration build. I had one in the small trailer, one on the van, and this last one is on this monster truck. We've got two ACs on it, but it's only 5,000 BTUs each. And what we've done is super insulated it with 7 inches of insulation. Not quite finished. Still got to go up and underneath with insulation, but this thing is doing fantastic on its own. Anyway, I will show you this one when it's completed. Thanks for watching. Any questions? Leave them below. I'll try to help you out. Thanks again. See you. All right, so just one final clarification. The AC is going to have its own power for the fan, just for the fan. And the other device, the Inkbird, will have its own power as well. And it's only going to control the compressor. All right, so the AC has its own power. It controls the fan, usually set on high, and you want it to run all the time to circulate, get rid of all the hot spots, keep everything uniform in temperature. Now the Rainbird controls the compressor. It really has the most important job. It's going to control when to shut off, when to turn on, and that is a single wire application. We're only controlling the hot going to the compressor. So the other two wires, you got a neutral white wire and a ground wire green. You do want to be careful with them and wrap them up. Make sure that they're separate, because if they're not separate and they manage to touch, it's going to trip your GFI. Now that's if you're using a GFI. My box is plugged into an outside outlet, and so it is GFI protected. So make sure you keep those wires separate. Now, interesting application of this is I had a control board went out. The whole digital display went out. So at that time, I was using the Chinese temperature control to run the compressor. And then so all I did, I disconnected that one temporarily, because otherwise you just have a block of ice. And I hooked up the fan directly to the power coming in. So we just bypassed the whole computer board and went straight to the fan with power. So supplying the fan with power, and then the Chinese control board would control the compressor. So worked just like a normal AC. So that's one interesting thing. For a few bucks, you can fix one where the power board went out. Right. This happened. I replaced a Domitech. It was a roof mount AC. It went out in just a year, and I replaced that with a low profile window AC. I even used the same Domitech cover to hide it, and ducted in the return and the air output separately. I think I made a video of that. I'm not sure if I was able to show the work. Sometimes we just run like mad to get everything back up and running, because there's money involved, there's produce involved underneath these ACs, and they need to be working at the best condition. So basically, yeah, just eliminated the control board and hooked up that fan directly to power, and then the Chinese control board controlled that hot going to the compressor, just like now we're using the Rainbird. A lot more robust, definitely better made sealed unit, and easier to work with. You don't have those tiny wires whipping around the back. So hope that's clear. AC controls the fan. Rainbird controls the compressor. So if they have any questions, just let me know. Maybe the hardest part a lot of people have is going to be finding the compressor wire. In this instance, with all the digital stuff, it was pretty easy, because you could tell there's a relay there at that spot, and you saw the spot where I unplugged it. So just unplugged it, You should really take a tester and see which one's supplying power. You can unplug one. If it has power and it's unplugged, definitely not the compressor, so it'd be the other side. I just took a guess. The one in the front is the power, and the one going away from the front is the compressor, and I was right. So, anyway, any questions, leave them below. Hope this clarifies everything for you. Again, made this for a request from someone, and hope they get to watch it. All right, thanks for watching. See ya.